This video is for people who find that their personal journey is influenced by the astrology, whether it's a full moon or a new moon, especially an eclipse, and we're entering eclipse season pretty much as we speak. You find that there is an influence in your life, and it can affect you in a variety of different ways. You can feel more sensitive, more emotional, more easily agitated or triggered, as they say. You might find that there are unexpected changes that kind of fall into your lap in life, causing you to take action in maybe a direction you weren't expecting. And it can be a little bit, quite a bit, honestly, disruptive sometimes. But deep down, you know there's a beneficial end result from this, your snow globe of life and emotions being sort of shaken up. And anyway, I make these videos. I've been making them for the last almost 8 or 9 years. There are energy updates that talk about the specific themes that are germane to the particular full moon, new moon, etc. And this video here is going to share with you the 3 main themes for the new moon on August 23rd, 2025. I'm filming this video actually on the 23rd, which is like technically late depending on where you live. However, as you probably know, the energy usually starts to build quite a bit before the actual moon, and then it can linger another several days or even a week after. So what I say, I believe, is still quite relevant, and I'm feeling very strongly in my own life, and I wanted to share it with you in case it can help you, because having an awareness of these themes can help you really trust. It can help you get the most out of it, because even though the astrology can present you with sometimes unexpected challenges, there's always an underlying reason for it. And when you know that, you can glean the benefit, which oftentimes can be quite profound and quite life-changing. So anyways, without going any further, let me get into the 3 themes right now. Theme number 1, rearranged. Right now, there's this massive collective rearrangement taking place on planet Earth. And you might find that you are being like placed where you belong, at least now. And that placement, and that means on all levels, your sense of self, where you live, how you show up, what you put your energy into, where you work, your relationships, all this. What I mean placement, your placement might not be exactly where you thought. A lot of times what happens is we become complacent and we rest too long in relationships, career situations, living situations that are comfortable, familiar, but we change very quickly now. And I know you've been changing a lot. If you gravitate towards videos like this, I would have to venture to guess that you are someone who's been putting a lot of energy into your self-development and your spiritual awakening. You're probably changing on an internal level very rapidly, which oftentimes, again, will result in these periods like we're in now, where all of a sudden you're out of place. And then the way you realize that is things stop working, things start falling apart. And it's stressful because you can feel like you have no solid ground to stand on, like the rug has just been ripped out from under you. And that's true. And you're going to fly off somewhere, but you know what? You're going to land exactly where you're meant to. And that's why I honestly, this particular thing is the reason why I came on today to make this video, because I know what it's like to be going through this type of transition. I've been through it many times. And I know a lot of people, they don't really handle it very well. And I can understand, because it's so unsettling sometimes to be, again, just where your stability, your safety is kind of like just gone. There's nothing to grasp onto in your life to where you can tell yourself it's good. The reality is you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. It's like starting a business. You don't know it's going to work. You hope it does. You hope it succeeds, but you don't know. And that unknown, it can breed a whole bunch of stuff. And it's good, because what it does, it welcomes up all these old patterns of thinking, these old emotional patterns, all this stuff that has maybe been dormant, but still living inside of you, now is bubbling up again, like that snow globe analogy. And now you can look at it. Now you can confront it. Now you can decide what is you and what is not you. So these transitions, I believe anyway, it seems, are kind of meant to be a little bit stressful and unsettling because they give us sufficient motivation to look within ourselves and to change and transform and evolve our thinking, our beliefs, our states of being we allow ourselves to be in. And in the end, the way it always has worked out for me, and I believe you know this intuitively, is I end up exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm always very pleasantly surprised at how awesome it is. Like, oh my God. Prior to landing on my feet, I was thinking of all the worst case scenarios and oh my God, this is going to happen. But here I am. I arrived fairly unscathed and a new person. Life-changing breakthroughs along the way, healing, rewiring of our sense of self and our consciousness, and we get to where we are happy anyways. A long time ago, I went through this when I had a one-on-one coaching business, and that was like my safety net. I knew if I had a certain amount of clients, I could pay all my bills, the family was safe, I was safe, my lifestyle was sort of intact, and I could keep doing it. I had no problem at the time. My YouTube channel was cranking along. Had plenty of clients. But what happened was, as I started getting burnt out from the one-on-one coaching, I had like up to 50 clients at one time, believe it or not. And I felt like, man, this doesn't feel like the way it used to. It doesn't feel inspired. It doesn't feel aligned. But because in my mind, that's the only thing I knew of that gave me this sort of safety, I just kept doing it. I kept kind of forcing it. And it still worked. I would get clients. I would help them. But over time, I became more and more and more out of alignment to the point where I finally had a phone call one time with somebody. And they were like, Victor, you don't even know my name, do you? And I was like, oh, yeah, I know your name. And I didn't. They were right. They called me out. My heart was no longer in it. And once that happened, I realized, my heart's not in this. It's not fair to these people because it's just not in alignment for me to do this particular thing for whatever reason anymore. So out of that moral obligation, realizing it's not cool to do that, I stopped taking on clients. And I knew intuitively that was the move. You got to let go of this thing. But the problem was, and the problem might be for you, I didn't know what was next. I didn't know what was to come. I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. I just knew, regardless of all that, I knew I had to stop. So I did. I just sort of stopped taking on clients. And then slowly, as the ones I had started dropping off, my income went down. And I remember it culminated one time with around New Year's. My wife and I went out and bought some furniture for this house we moved into. And then we had gotten back to our house and checked our finances and realized we couldn't afford it. We literally had to take it all back. And I was like, what am I going to do? Why did I stop taking on clients? How stupid, But you know what happened a little bit after that? I had an idea to run a retreat. I thought, how cool would it be to work with a group of people in person all at once? And I did. And it worked. And I made as much, if not more money than I was with the one-on-one coaching. This was not only in alignment, but it was awesome. It was like the universe said, I know you like the coaching and I know it's helping people, but you could do this other thing that's just way deeper and you're going to love it. You get to work with your wife and your friends and it's this awesome experience. We used to do them in Sedona and it's going to be fun. And then you get to chill out for a while. And it was that was where I was placed. But as my snow globe shook up, I was like, oh, I don't want to let go of the coaching. I'm comfortably here. I'm good. It's yeah, but it could be better. Life is about change. Life is about evolution. And so if you're going through that, use that as an analogy. You can trust. You can trust that you're going to end up where you're meant to be. And you're going to learn a lot about yourself and life along the way, and you're going to be better off. So now's the time to really let go and trust the process. Trust your process. Trust your path. And secondly, in particular, I would say this new moon is really amplifying your sense of divine purpose. I believe a lot of people right now are being rearranged because they have a higher calling. They have a higher purpose. You know, back in the day, I was a fitness trainer. Another little quick story to really exemplify what I'm trying to convey here. And I was a fitness trainer, and I would help people with their diet. I would work them out, and they would lose weight. They would get fit, and they would get in shape. And a lot of people would get to be able to get off their, like, you know, diabetes medication and all these things. I was making a difference in people's lives. And the same thing I described a minute ago with the coaching, that same thing happened with my personal training business. It was like at one point really in alignment, but then it like stopped fulfilling me and it felt kind of forced. But I said to myself, one, this is all I know. Two, I'm making a difference in these people's lives. It's not cool to do something different. But anyway, fast forward, what ended up happening is I let go of my personal training gym and then started my YouTube channel, which now is like over 300,000 followers. And I had something else I was meant to do. I didn't know what it was at the time. All I knew was like I was fond of YouTube, and I didn't know I'd have like a big YouTube channel. That was like not even crossing my mind. All I knew was that I had to let go of what I was doing. But if my mind and resistance would have had its way, I would still be a personal trainer. There are hundreds of thousands of people that would have not been maybe impacted with these videos that are about a spiritual awakening and things like that. And I had a higher calling. But a lot of times our higher calling isn't necessarily like given to us at a convenient time or in a way that we can initially understand. Usually it begins with a breaking down and collapsing of what you once knew. And then there's usually this uncomfortable like limbo, which you might be feeling right now, to this void where you're like, okay, I let go, but now what? Waiting, and it's kind of uncomfortable. Requires a lot of faith and a lot of patience. But eventually, through inspired thinking, ideas, synchronicity sometimes, you start to slowly just move on with life as we always do. And before you know it, you're involved in this new thing. And not only that, is you notice that you're also bringing forth a deeper part of yourself. Some of you might even kind of know what you'd like to be doing, but you don't take it seriously. You think it's just like this pipe dream. But what oftentimes happens is the part of us that can do those things, it's like dormant until we give it a whirl. Going back to my coaching analogy, this happened to me before I ever did a one-on-one coaching session. I felt inspired to do coaching many years ago. And my mind said, well, you don't know what the hell you're doing. How are you going to help these people? You're not credible. You don't have a degree, all these objections. But I listened to it. I had faith at that time, and I went for it. You know what happened? Right on my first couple of calls, this like psychic sense that I never had before sort of clicked on. And what it was exactly, if you're curious, I found that when people were talking, I would have this distinct feeling in my chest of like, I would describe it as like a stale fear energy. It's kind of an unsettling energy, honestly, but it would just well up in my body as people were talking. And what eventually I realized that was like my insight that what people were saying was just like the very tip of the iceberg, and there was like a deeper wound there oftentimes connected to it. And this feeling would kind of alert me to that fact, and then I could steer the conversation and sort of help them realize that as well. And I found that through this feeling, I was able to give people these really cool breakthroughs. But I didn't know I could do that at the time. All I knew was I'm guided to do this thing that I feel unqualified for. But because I gave myself a chance, this thing blossomed. So a lot of times, like your higher purpose, you might not know how it's going to look, how you're going to do it. But if you like give it a whirl, if you really give yourself a chance, you will surprise yourself. And finally, I just want to say, and I think you can feel this, we're going through an unprecedented transition right now in all of human history with AI, with all the instability within the political arena, and there's wars, there's all this stuff going on right now. We're going through a major like shifting of the ages, basically. And I believe, and I'm seeing it, and I think you see it too, it's catalyzing a lot of people to kind of go into like crisis mode. A lot of people who are like really not handling it all that well, basically. But what I see is also a lot of potential. If people had people like you in their lives who are sort of familiar with this fundamental process, am I right? This is not your first time. You've been going through this kind of in your own way probably for years. If the world had people like you in it, it would be a lot better and a lot easier and a lot smoother. And when people get to I'm reading this book right now. It's about these 3 levels of consciousness, and it references history. It references Don Quixote, I think, and then Hamlet, and then this guy Faust, and they all kind of represent different levels of consciousness. Hamlet was someone who was like almost of a higher consciousness, but devoid of like having faith, and he got to this sort of point where he could either evolve or he could succumb to like his circumstance, which he did, and had a very tragic ending for him and everyone around him. But then this Faust guy also came, another book or another play, came to a certain threshold, but he used that same sort of tragedy as a catalyst to come into like a higher consciousness. And that's, I think, the potential right now. A lot of people are like at that point where they could go one of 2 ways. And I believe people like you are meant to come in there and be there for them. But you might have to let go of what you thought you wanted to do, of what you were involved with, and really align yourself with your higher purpose so that you can do that. And then finally, just a reminder, and you'll probably feel this, but you are guided. What I found that during these sort of transitional times, there's always like a heightened intuition. And thank God for that. And sometimes it goes away temporarily just to give you a little bit of a process or something. But for the most part, there's like the way to roll with these type of changes is not like in a conventional way. And I rarely encourage people to like abandon their logic, which you definitely shouldn't. But in my experience during these times, it's like a lot of times you'll be able to kind of sense your way, sense your way to your next step, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step. Then you look back and you're like, holy cow, I've come a long way. Things seem to work out for me. And with your intuition and your faith, you can move through these critical points, unlike Hamlet, more like Faust. There is a guiding force within you that can help you, but you got to listen to it. You got to trust it as best you can. It's not easy. You might feel yourself kind of restless and impatient at the time, but there is something there guiding you. I've been through this sort of like thing countless times, and God, I never like it. It's always very uncomfortable and unsettling, but it always works out in the end. And I believe it's because I've always trusted my intuition. Like when my intuition, for example, told me to stop taking on coaching clients, logically, that seemed like a dumb idea. This is how you earn a living. You have children, you have responsibilities. Why would you do such a thing without some kind of other option that you're aware of and kind of can depend upon? I didn't know why. All I knew is I knew. I had a knowingness, a clear cognizance that this is the right move. And it was. Very quickly, I moved through this transition and ended up running retreats and loving it, man. And it was a beautiful part of my life. It's like your higher self knows what you're capable of. It kind of wants you to step into your higher purpose, and it can guide you all the way there. And you're going to love it, my friend. You're going to feel more tapped in, more creative, more inspired, more abundant, more expansive, more yourself, and you're going to be doing what you came here to do. So with that said, if you would like some help grounding back into yourself, I have a breathwork ceremony that is a recording from one of my sessions you can download for free. It's somatic release breathwork. It's really good for releasing some old emotions that are like maybe stuck in your system that you're aware of but you can't shake, and also bringing you back into a place of alignment. It's a free ceremony. I normally charge money for it. I'll leave a link down below if you want to check it out. With that said, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.